It blows my mind that it's been a year since I submitted my personal statement, but man, it's over, and I guess I can reflect on it and use it to give some tips and tricks. So let's go.
All right, what's up, everybody? Today I'm going to give you a few tips and things I've learned from my personal statement journey, and I hope you find it helpful. This is specifically the personal statement for medical school, and we'll see how it goes. So before we even get started, some of you may be wondering, what is the personal statement? If you're like me, I didn't start my personal statement until June, but some of you are starting earlier. But this is the personal statement. I took it straight from the 2018 application. It stays the same every year. It basically asks you, why do you want to be a doctor? It says, use the space provided below to explain why you want to go to medical school. 5,300 characters, including spaces, and that's about one page if you really wanted to do the math on that. All right, so now I'm just going to go over some things I've learned, some things my mentors have taught me that I want to pass down to you, and really hope that you get something from it, because again, this is all self-reflection for me looking back. So my main mentor for this was Neil Lim. Major props to him. Many of you may not know him. If you know me, you know Neil. He's the greatest person in the world, but these are some things I got from him, so I just want to make sure you guys give him the proper props. But I also have added on things I've learned. So first of all, at the end of the day, your personal statement should answer three main questions. Okay, the first one is the most common one, which is, why do you want to be a doctor, right? And the second one is more nuanced, I'd say, personally. It's how do your experiences line up with that desire, okay? So let's say you want to be a doctor for reasons X, Y, and Z. Well, what experiences do you have that kind of substantiate that desire, all right? And the third question is, this is something I've added in on my own, is, do you really want to be a doctor? Like, do you really? Because there's a lot of people that say they want to be a doctor, but you can tell because they only have the characteristics lined up, but you need more than that in your personal statement. Because if you really want to be a doctor, you should be able to write in your personal statement where you envision yourself. You know, where do you see yourself practicing? Is there a particular niche of the medical population that you want to be serving? Do you want to be serving in an urban setting, in a rural setting? How do you want to be serving? So I'd say the third question is more of a nuanced question, which is, if you really want to be a doctor, there has to be stuff where you can prove it. Like, where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing? Why do you see yourself doing it, right? And again, you have to talk about why your experiences have really informed that decision. I personally found myself, when I was asked these questions, I could answer number one and I could answer number two. But then number three really got to me. It's like, I have to prove I want to be a doctor. And if to prove it, I need to know these things. Like, where do I want to practice? What kind of patients do I want to see? Where do I envision myself? And that's something I hadn't thought about before. And that's something you do want to think about and really ingrain that into your personal statement. Because believe it or not, medical students that have thought that far out are the ones that usually have a better sense of direction. They get into med school and they know what they're going to do. And I'm sure that comes across as much more appealing to admissions committees than does someone who's like, I know I want to be a doctor, but I don't know where. Whereas someone else is like, I want to be a doctor in an underserved setting doing X, Y, and Z because this is what my experiences have taught me. That's much more strong, right? I hope you can see where I'm coming from. So those are the three main things I would encourage you to consider. And, you might be thinking, what does this mean? Well, the way you want to integrate all of this into your personal statement is usually through a thesis statement. And again, major props to Neil to kind of show me what this means, but you want to have a part of your personal statement that I think summarizes the answers to the aforementioned questions, right? So those were the three main questions, and you want to have a statement that kind of summarizes, I want to be a doctor because of X, Y, and Z, and that's the main reason. So with that thesis statement, what you can actually do is convey an image to the reader that comes across as clear, concise, and evident as to where you're going to go, right? A lot of people write their personal statement, and it's kind of like all over the place. Right? You want to have a clear, distinct thing at the end. Again, you've learned about your thesis statement in elementary and middle school. It's like supposed to be near the end of the beginning of your writing, and it's supposed to summarize the answers. Like, I want to be a doctor because of A, B, and C. So here's my thesis statement. I don't want to share my personal statement. You'll see why later. But here's a small tidbit so you know my personal statement. My thesis was, and this is completely out of context, but it was my interaction with the surgeon, which was what attracted me to medicine. But it was my experience at UC Berkeley that solidified my desire to pursue it as a career. These experiences, though varied, demonstrated how medicine represents the intersection of my three biggest passions: learning, teaching, and caring for others. So I talked about the fact that I have three big passions: learning, teaching, and caring for others. As you know through this YouTube channel, I love to learn, I love to teach, and I love interacting with you guys. And those three passions, I kind of intertwined that with medicine because I said medicine is the intersection of these three things. I'm passionate about these three things. And then I went on in my personal statement to talk about why. Okay. So that's just how I did my thesis. So with that statement though, the format of my essay was set up and it also made it easier for me to write about it because I had 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom. So to answer the question that's on everyone's mind, if you have trouble getting started, how do you start? And the number one way I would encourage you to start is to just answer the question, why medicine? In a succinct or even long way. Okay, let's say you have to answer the question, why medicine? How do you answer it? Well, most people will say, well, there was an experience I had and that's what inspired me to go into medicine. Okay, so now because of that experience, what about that experience attracted you? Was it the fact that, maybe you had an uncle who was hospitalized and the doctor made you feel comforted? What about that experience interested you? And in this case, maybe it's the fact that the experience kind of made you feel A, B, and C. Okay, why do you like A, B, and C? What about it attracts you? And you're going to realize that the reason you like certain characteristics is because you have experiences that align with those characteristics. Like, for example, in me, when I asked myself the question, why medicine? An experience did come to mind. It was when a family member of mine was in the hospital, and then I met the surgeon. And the part about that thing that really attracted me was the surgeon was so good at, first of all, explaining what was going on. It clearly seemed like he was really good at interacting with me, and it seemed like he was very passionate about the science he was learning. All right. So in that case, I realized I really liked the fact that he was learning, teaching, and interacting. And at that point, I was like, wow, I like those three characteristics. Why do I like them? Because I have experiences that reinforce those same attributes in my life. I have myself enjoyed learning, I myself have enjoyed teaching, and I myself have enjoyed interacting. So the fact that I saw it in this other person really made me feel comforted and also made me feel like this was a career I could be interested in, right? So just kind of going through this outline for every person can make you understand why you want to go into medicine, even if you might not know why. Ultimately, once you've written it down, you want to talk about how that relates to where you see yourself in 50 years. So maybe talk about like, okay, I know I want to go into this profession because of A, B, and C. And ultimately, I know where this is going to lead me down the line. Do you want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon? Do you want to be in the clinic? Do you want to be outside the clinic? Do you want to be an academic institution? All that stuff, right? You want to create this outline, which is relatively simplistic. You just keep asking yourself the word why. And you create this beautiful outline, and now you at least have somewhere to get started. My first one, I just answered the question, why medicine? I had like a word splatter. I didn't give a crap about the word limit. I just wrote everything down. And believe it or not, that was a really great way to get started, okay? And now, just a note on reading other people's personal statements. You're going to realize that there are personal statements out there. I will never send most people who are trying to work on a personal statement mine because I don't want to bias you. Every single one of you is unique, and the tendency is that when you read someone's personal statement, you have a tendency to kind of follow their formatting. Don't do that. I mean, the outline is a great way to set it up, but you want to create and carve your own personal statement. And when you read someone else's, it can totally screw up the story you're trying to tell. You are you. Don't worry about making it adhere to any random format. The outline is there to help you out, but from there, take it in whatever direction you want, okay? And as you will realize, the diversity factor is huge in med school. Every med school wants to know you. They want to know why you're different. So if you're trying to read other people's personal statements, you're reading personal statements, it can really bias you and kind of make it more mundane. And you don't want that. You want to speak yourself. You want to be Prerac. I mean, I want to be Prerac. You want to be you, okay? So let's be honest about that. So now let me just go straight into realisms. These are 10 harsh truths I wish I had known. This is not 10 actually, it's probably fewer than 10. I just impose numbers on random things. But anyway, these are things I wish I had known, and I think I had learned through this process, and I highly encourage you guys to do that. So first of all, focus on your personal statement. And by that I mean write about you. Okay, I know many of you or many of us have been inspired to go into medicine because of another person, another doctor, or another person who was in the hospital. Don't talk about that person. You can use that as a way to kind of bring medicine into your life, but then focus on yourself. Focus on your experiences. Focus on you. The most common thing that's easy for people to do, and including myself, I went through 13 drafts, is to talk about other people. Talk about the doctor you saw that was inspiring. Talk about that experience you had. No, talk about you. Talk about your characteristics. Talk about how you developed, okay? And, experiences about someone pretty close to you being saved by a doctor. I mean, I hate to break it to you, but that's cliche, okay? Talking too much about that can get overdone. I've had multiple admissions directors come up to me and be like, man, there's just too many dead grandma stories, okay? And I don't want to discredit, like, any story to you that's meaningful, but try not to make that the main focus. It can be the reason you went into it, but you got to have someone tell you what's real and what's not, I told you already, a great editor that was real with me. He's like, dude, I'm sorry this happened to you, but you can't put this stuff in, man. You got to be real with yourself. Tons of people will be saying this. Focus on you. Don't focus on the fact that, I have this sad story and I was inspired by it. That unfortunately has become too trite at this point. And if you have someone close to you who can be real with you like that, it really helps. Because my personal statement was like that initially, and I had someone who was like, "Dude, you got to take this out. This is too overdone." And I took it out, and it was a good decision. Okay, and then you should also expect multiple drafts. I had 13. People will have more than that. You will start somewhere and you'll end somewhere completely different. However, I will say this. You're going to get your essay edited by a bunch of people. You will get to a point when different editors are giving you different advice. Follow your inkling, okay? I had people telling me, you should take this out, you should keep this in, you should take this out, you should keep this in, and it was completely contradictory. At that point, it's on you. But that also means that you've done enough editing to the point where people are kind of going tit for tat. If different people are disagreeing, that means you've gotten to a point where you've edited enough times that at least it's good to some people and bad to others. And then you can decide what you want, okay? But you should at least edit it multiple times to make sure you have had enough eyes on it that it sounds decent, all right? Next aspect of realism. The personal statement goes to every school, but rarely ever becomes the reason you get in or not. A horrible personal statement will definitely kill you, but you know how people rate their personal statement? I say my personal statement was like a 6 out of 10, maybe a 7. And that's what I'm saying. A personal statement like that is not the reason you're going to get rejected. If anything, it'll be your interview. But a personal statement like that is good enough to at least get your foot in the door. So just remember that. Don't put too much weight on it. Don't put too little weight. If it's really bad, you'll get rejected. Don't get me wrong. You misspell a school's name, you'll get rejected. But it's not as important as some people make it out to be. Okay? And the last thing I'm going to say is the personal statement is a time to talk about yourself. The AMCAS application, as many of you know who've already gotten it, who've gotten mine, is 18 pages long. Out of those 18 pages, the personal statement is like the one part where you can talk about anything you want. Don't use that space to talk about something you've already mentioned. Okay? If you do talk about something that's already mentioned, talk about the emotions behind it. Talk about what you learned from it. Talk about why it made you grow as a person. Do not talk about how many hours you devoted to it. Do not talk about why you hated it or like what about it you think is really useful for med school. Talk about the emotional stuff, the part related to your internal growth. Okay? And ultimately, you can also talk in the personal statement, if you spin it properly, about any lapses you've had. I know a lot of people have had things that go wrong during college that affect their academic standing. And let's say you do want to talk about it. You can use this space to talk about it, but you want to spin it in a unique way. Maybe say you slipped your grades in one semester because something happened, but you were resilient. Then you can use that as a way to display your resilience and you made your grades go up after that. I don't know. But the point is you can use this space for that. But I realize I'm already getting to the high minute point. I have a lot more to say about this, but I hope you found this helpful. Just my few tips and tricks for the personal statement. Shoot me a message if you need it. My Snapchat is Prerakcity, and hope you guys enjoy the video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.